Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but I think what went on in Kolo in terms of sake has been an eventful moment, especially for the NRM party and for governance in Uganda. Because at the end of the day, NRM is the one that's in charge of power.
Yes.
And maybe it may be there for some time to come. So the better NRM is managed as a party, the better for Uganda. So it doesn't mean need for me to comment on what's going on. I don't need to be wrong to NRM as a member or whatever.
Yeah.
But as a stakeholder,
what's the and even as an observer.
An observer to be governed better. So most of these people who competed in the NEC are personally known to me. Like Honorable Right Honorable Kadaga was my minister when I was privatizing telecommunications. She was the minister of in charge of communications in the 1990s. And I was the communications coordinator for the ministry.
Wow.
I was on all these boards of Uganda Post and Telecommunications. I restructured the Uganda Post and Telecommunications into the successor entities: Uganda Communication Commission, Uganda Telecom, Post Bank, the training school at Nakawa, and Uganda Post Limited.
Professor, allow me ask you, how many pages is your CV?
Sometimes I have, because as a result of working in the government for a long time, I traveled so much, all these international conferences or whatever.
Must be a pamphlet.
Even before I went for my PhD to UK, I started another PhD with the University of South Africa. These are personal things.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
But of course, at the end of the day, I just say, it's glory to God.
Yeah, amen.
Because He used me to do so many things. Like I was enumerating, participating in restructure and the restructure communications infrastructure and so on.
Wow.
And I don't take that for granted. That's why I'm saying that those who come to lead also come proudly here and say, I did this. Instead of seeing you in the papers that you have been caught because of this and that, you are in Luzira and all that. You know, working in the service is a honor. That's why you see them with the chauffeured vehicles and whatever, those whatever. But still, it's a calling. Because as a public servant, you are 24/7. Like you have seen the president himself. He has been there in Colorado up to this morning. Yeah, and yesterday he took a marathon. And I think it was a sprint.
He did a trot.
A sprint of
a trot. Yeah, that's trotting.
For my perceived at his age, it was a sprint. And for me, you can say I couldn't have even beaten him even if we had tried.
No, but the president is always in the gym. At least that one we know.
He has a lot of discipline when it comes even to dieting and his personal health. I think
we shall invite him to the powerlifting championships that are soon falling in. But Professor, let's get to business immediately. The whole bit surrounding, let's first and foremost highlight unto you Nzaire, the young brother of the president. He managed to withdraw his contest, courtesy of the president talking to him. Mike Mukula withdrew last minute yesterday. Maybe he foresaw Echodu was going to beat him. Well, that is just my thought. But then one other big contest that I actually presume shouldn't have been, Kadaga Anita. Did it have to happen? Because the president had actually advised that they agree and one of them becomes, the other gets to be nominated.
But I think the bottom line is the way we perceive politics and how we interpret our participation in politics.
Yes.
And the general, of course, governance. As I said, it's a calling. But now, I think the political culture we have developed in Uganda is as if it's a contestation of do and die. And I think you remember when Madame Rebecca was given an audience. Then she was saying, I must
on Saturday. Yes.
I cannot have an alternative. I think that the politics of intolerance or lack of flexibility can be also. I think it even worked against her because she has been there for some time.
Because that was automatically.
We recognize she has contributed a lot to this.
Definitely.
I personally respect her as one of the best politicians we have had. Because as I said, she was my minister of communications, and when I was president of telecom, it was very sensitive. She would tell me, Wanyakala, go and take a decision. So long as you do it in good faith and you report back to me, give brief. Then go ahead.
She used to delegate.
And I am proud that I came out of it because she involved a lot of resources, millions of dollars and whatever. So I think she has done her part. But at the end of the day also, we should always perceive that politics is a game. where you lose and what? And win.
Can't it be a clean game? Because we often perceive with the aspect of dirty game.
Hassan yesterday complained that there was a lot of money that exchanged the hands. And I think we are decrying that. We are saying, no, that's not the best way. If you want to serve the citizens, why should you bribe them to serve them? Now, if you make politics a transaction that I buy your vote, that means even the person now you are going to represent, you has no moral authority to put you under pressure. Until the next 5 years, you give him another 10,000 or 5,000, like they do to people in the village, or 100,000 and whatever, which doesn't make sense. So I think we should do. Myself, I'm not personally happy about this money exchanging hands, because people should be elected on merit. That's why I admire the Singaporean Lee Kuan Yew. He said, even if you are politically loyal, but be of merit and be patriotic. And that's how Singapore, which doesn't have resources, Uganda is the first one.
Very interesting country.
So I think Uganda is blessed with so many resources. We want the type of leadership which accepts that politics is not a contestation of enmity or hatred and so on. It's about just trying to handle different views so that we can guide our country forward. And I think that's the best way we can go. And I think that's why I'm saying that now NRM is looked, the politics going on in NRM, they were taking it as a role model to other parties, because the UPC, which was, or the UPA, maybe they're still struggling. But these new other parties will learn from what's happening in NRM. So we have all stakes, even if we are not direct members in NRM. And I think with the time also the NRM will be managing the transition process. So for me, on a positive note, I'm seeing that as much as the elders like Kadaga have lost and so on, but we also bring in new blood. So that is the vibrance and whatever that the NRM needs to create institutions that will outlive even the president.
So if you were to highlight lessons, what lessons are there for the UPCs, the NUPs, FDCs, PFFs to learn?
But you see, they can be both negative and positive.
Definitely.
Like when it came to know, it became very difficult to contest for the top positions. So you find some more positions are ring fenced.
By the way, Professor, put a pause just to let the listener know. Today, 28th of August 2025, it's a Thursday. Today is the day that NUP is unleashing the card bearers for their party in the respective elective positions. Today is the day. So just in case, they should look out.
Because it is not going to be easy, especially for NUP now within the Uganda region. And given that now part of NUP also has gone to organize the massacre whatever. Now DP is also trying to revive itself. Now, and so many people are picking this presidential whatever
nomination forms.
And I think that comes back to the culture, how people are perceiving politics. Is it a transaction? Is it a transactional politics or transformational politics? So I will talk of servant leadership. So those are big lessons that we should pick. And when we see people contesting even the NRM primaries, even at member of parliament level, even the local councils and so on, where it becomes a do or die business, then it means the stakes now in politics are high and they are not necessary. Because people should go to think of going into entrepreneurship and so on, not
agriculture, etc.
My worry is the motivation of someone who bribes, who uses billions. Well, like I think in the papers today, some people are using as much as 5 billion for security positions and so on.
In fact,
so now you start asking, what is the motivation of that person spending so much money?
In fact, it is at that point that we put it to you, Professor. You're much knowledgeable than we are. You've actually been inside of governance than, well, for us, we've not been there anyway. But what is at stake that makes people die to join it?
I know in the politics we have these politics of interest.
Well, they tell us it's voluntary.
Like in America and so on. You have seen even Trump being accused of being supported by the Israel or whatever. That's why he's tolerating abusers in Gaza and and somehow he also has a relationship with Putin. That's why he's tolerating what's going on in Ukraine and so on. And recently, you saw what went on in Iran. He was America was complacent, and some people even perceive that the war going on in Gaza, Israel is just a pawn in the game, but it's the Americans now.
The Americans are the kings, while Israel is the queen.
By causing unnecessary conflict and all that. So anyway, at the end of the day, I think we are saying politics should not be about these personal benefits or self-interest. It should be the national collective interest that benefits, especially the vulnerable people.
Yep.
Like in the case of Uganda, I was happy this morning when I was trying to look at Chodu, the one who won for the East.
Yeah.
Understand he has been a philanthropist,
Yes.
and he is an economist,
Yes.
and he is a man on the ground.
Yeah.
And he has promised that he wants to even to influence the party to be more citizen-centered than the top leadership, which is okay. And if that's the kind of leadership that for myself I would be supporting, and that can be a peak of lesson to these other parties. Like even in the loop that you are saying is going to have today, I would rather guide them that instead of saying, oh, this one belongs to this tribe, this one belongs, oh, he has been more of very. Sometimes in the opposition now, if you are very vocal against government, they perceive you to be the best leader. But sometimes, for me, has been in the government for almost 50 years or 40 years now. It's very easy to criticize from outside.
Yes.
But when you are given the responsibility to lead, that's when you
Professor,
see even when we cannot manage our families of 5 to 10 people, what about we managing 50 million
Professor,
people?
on Monday when I came to studio with Shina, I was actually talking about things I was sharing with a group of my age mates at within the locality at my residence in aspects of government has done nothing, and I was telling them this is how government works. You might actually see nothing, but there is a lot happening. And I told them if you joined government, you would actually end up getting silenced.
Yeah, and that's you have seen most people who were very vocal when they are without. I don't want to give you, but you have seen people who have been in the opposition but they are now holding cabinet positions and so on. And they even become more holier than though.
They are not actually bribed, but now they see how things work, and now the noise is no more.
So usually government has very good intentions, like these UPE programs, free primary education, secondary schools, now city schools are coming up at upgrade of these health centers.
Yes.
The road infrastructure, of course, some regions have not benefited as much. Then all these security concerns, we all need security. All these traffic laws that we are talking about, the traffic decongesting, speed controls and so on. This morning I was coming from Wake, and these trucks from Kenya were just overtaking even in narrow whatever, So because they think I don't want to do that. So government has intentions to minimize some of these challenges, to mitigate them. But do we get the necessary cooperation even from the public as much as we blame government? Sometimes like those people over speeding and leading to accidents and injuries.
Yes.
It's their own lives. But the government has to come in to regulate them, because as citizens, government has an interest to make sure that we live in a safe environment. So I think as much as at times we go overboard and see only, like some of they say you journalists, you are like when a dog bites a man, that's not news. But when a man bites.
Yes.
But even for us academics, by the way, and that's the problem, especially in Africa, we don't relate well with the government. We always try to look at the negative, whatever. And yet in the other countries like America, UK, all of these policies, foreign policies, domestic policies, they usually don't go to these legislative assemblies like House of Commons, whatever, in
Senate,
the UK,
the
or
Senate.
the Senate, without going to these top universities like London School, Cambridge, Oxford,
For scrutiny.
Harvard in America, and
True.
those intellectuals have to filter through and see the challenges, the gaps in those policies before they are launched. Like even in Uganda, if we had very good working,
but it also happens in Uganda.
Higher institutions, this partnership development model, we could have done the feasibility studies and the loopholes, piloting, so that we fix. But now, of course, the policy was declared because also it was in the manifesto, and the government had to account now for performance. It was fast tracked, but in the process you find that there are some challenges.
Professor,
at one time I was teaching in a class, and one of my students was a deputy cow. He received the money on the mobile money, and then he took his classmates to consume 500,000. In the first instance, was that money intended for the deputy cow, and was it supposed to be for consumption of pork?
So, Professor, when you say that, you rejuvenated a question that has always been a part of me. You say in those other countries, such policies are scrutinized by probably that society of learners, scholars.
Think tanks.
Yes, think tanks. That is the right phrase. In Uganda, probably the scrutiny happens at Parliament, and that's where it ends. They pass.
Even in the Prince Office, the regulatory.
Okay, yes. But Professor, allow me coin the question. Allow me coin the question. In Parliament, where these scrutinies happen, perhaps as the biggest avenue where they happen, these are chaps at most who have achieved a USCE certificate.
Yeah,
you are the guys with the doctorates, you're the guys with the masters, the degrees, etc. How does it feel that the party, or rather the group that decides for this nation, is averagely senior 6, while it's deciding for people like you and others, beyond and above senior 6?
That's a big challenge. First of all, for us, the intellectuals, we despise politics. And we think, that's why we had like my little friend Katolo.
Oh yeah.
That should be the motivation of a leader. So we have degenerated to that level, to the extent that now you find those people who would be able to be role models and experts and professionals, they have very little in terms of policy input. But of course, there are some members of parliament who have that good qualification.
Definitely,
like now this is what they should do.
The Abdul Katuntus.
Yes, they are very actually an economist, and so we are saying. But at the same time, when it comes, I'm also a lecturer of public policy. So when it comes to public policy, sometimes it is influenced by the technical, whatever feasibility and whatever, which public servants. Whatever these committees, when they are sitting to filter out these policies, they always listen to them, the permanent secretaries and also the direct commissioners and so on. But at the end of the day, it is the politics which overrules. And in the case, even at Parliament, these are representatives of particular constituencies. So sometimes you find that they are looking at their local, and yet when you become a member of Parliament, you are now supposed to discuss issues that concern the nation as much as you represent your local whatever. So that means the win-win. You cannot only focus on your constituency. So sometimes we lack that sort of diverse way of perspectives coming in, both at the expert level and the political level, so that we have consensus building in terms of the sort of policies that we should have. And I think that's the problem we have. But at the end of the day, also as elites, as professionals, who would want to have an input in some of the policies, sometimes we find some of us also belong to certain parties. So we are already biased. If it is NRM policy, it is bad. If it is something suggested by opposition, it is outright bad. So unless we try to sanitize our politics, the way we perceive things, and see that these policies are going to help everybody, like that PDM model. Is it only targeted for NRM people? No. Even the opposition and so on. If the NRM constructs a road or a school or a health center, it benefits everybody. So I think we should push the national interest first. But of course, we are saying that those national interests can only be pushed through elected leaders. That's why we have these political parties, so that we can have competition and we get the best leaders who can make better policies and even implement them. But of course, that's the ideal situation. But I think as a nation, we are still struggling. That's why you have our neighbors like Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania. They went ahead of us in terms of reaching the lower middle income, whatever, which we had anticipated some years ago, because Uganda also we have had our own checkered history. This political conflicts, 1966 in the army and whatever, 1980s we had wars and all that. So I think we have not really completely recovered from that. And even COVID, I think, also backtracked us a bit.
Definitely.
So we are heading there, but we need to fix some of these governance-related issues. But if people are going to become ministers and permanent secretaries and so on, how do they come to office?
Their orientation.
Because even yesterday we had a lot of problems that people are buying themselves into the civil service, and if you don't have someone on the merit on the job, do you think he can develop a good policy and implement it?
Delivery can't be that good.
So those are
Professor, let's first go back to the aspect of commercialization of our politics, and in that case, commercialization at SEC. What do you think is the cause? Is it that these people have the money? And in fact, if they have the money, is it that Uganda has the money? Are they well placed within that money, those bags of money? What exactly is this reason for which the money is deployed into the politics?
Somehow it is a tricky question, especially when it comes to who holds the responsibility for making our politics a business instead of a service delivery centered. I think we are to blame at all levels. I've seen very brilliant brains, like you've heard of Professor Piero Lumumba?
Yeah.
One time to his constituency, they said you will be the best politician, even an African president. But where's something, Chidogo? What have you brought for us? So even for us, and even the public are compromised. You can go to them and talk all sorts of things they say. So we have not a political culture. I don't know how we inherited it.
Yeah.
But even the other day I was listening to the former Deputy President Kichago. Kichago is of Kenya. He was talking about the same thing, that now corruption has become the order of the day. If the government wants to pass through something, some money must exchange. So we have created that culture, and that's a very negative culture. It's a selfish culture. Actually, if we had to identify one of the problems why that is not making us as Africa to progress, that's the biggest problem. We don't differentiate between the private space, private interest, and the public interest. And yet in other countries, they always front first the public interest.
Yeah.
America first, you have seen this American nationalism and so the Iranians, even if when they were crushed, but they had to fight back. The Russians, the Ukrainians, whatever, the Russians are trying to say NATO should not come near them because it would endanger them. So, and for example, in the UK, Britain, and the other countries, if they find you faulting tax, they will report you. Because they know they are losing on a good road, electricity and so on. But in the countries like Uganda, even someone will help you to even avoid paying your man and whatever, because they think they don't see the immediate impact of the taxes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, even the way people who manage government, sometimes at one time I was managing a big budget, trillions in those 20 years. I was a secretary level finance and administration. Trillions, you are signing on whatever, but we are just stewards of those government resources.
Yes.
Because these people in the rural areas, the 70% and so on, they also pay taxes. Everything they buy, this pen you buy, whatever you are moving, transport,
kerosene.
So that's the money that comes to the treasury, that is the politicians and the public servants' money. So this money we are just stewards and we are custodians of it in trust. But in most cases, people assume that when you apply public office and you have access to a budget,
it is your money.
You can use it the way you want. And that's, I think, where we are going wrong.